Imagine waking up in a damp Kenyan forest, cold dew on your face, mist curling around towering trees. You hear the chirps of weaver birds and the far-off clatter of British patrols. You are outnumbered and outgunned, yet you aren't afraid. You are a woman, not just any woman, but a field marshal commanding hundreds of fighters. This isn't fiction. It's the life of Field Marshal Muthoni Kirima, the only woman to reach the Mau Mau's highest military rank. Hi everyone, welcome back to Wandia Chronicles. Today we're telling the astonishing story of Muthoni Kirima, a girl from Nyeri who became a symbol of courage, resilience and humor in the struggle for Kenya's independence. Her tale is raw, inspiring, sometimes funny and sometimes heartbreaking. By the end, you'll understand why she was called the Weaver Bird and why her legend still matters. If you love deep dives into African history and the heroes our textbooks overlook, hit subscribe now and ring the bell so you never miss an episode. It really helps our channel grow. Also, I'd love to know, where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments. Let's see how far this story flies. Muthoni Kirima was born in 1931 in Nyeri village, Nyeri County. She was Kikuyu, Kenya's largest ethnic group. When she was very young, her family trekked 15 kilometers to Karingu with a single donkey carrying their belongings. They walked most of the way, and for a little girl it was exhausting. In Karingu, she discovered Christianity at a missionary's tent and became fascinated, converting at age 8. Life under colonial rule was harsh. At a settler's farm, she witnessed racist abuse. African men beaten, women assaulted, and children overworked. Those scenes fueled her resolve to fight for freedom. But Muthoni's toughness started even earlier. One story says that at age 10, she killed a rhinoceros that was attacking her father's goats. It's an unbelievable tale, but it hints at her fearless spirit and the dangers people faced living on the margins of settler lands. In 1948, she met Mutungi Gichuhi, a cook at the same farm. They married and moved near Nyeri. She became a trader while he continued cooking. Their small house was happy, but the simmering discontent among Kenya's black majority was about to explode. The land alienation, forced labor, and racial insults Muthoni witnessed convinced her that petitions alone wouldn't bring justice. For a devout churchgoer and businesswoman, the idea of taking up arms might have seemed improbable, but the times were radicalizing ordinary people. In 1952, the Mau Mau uprising erupted. The Kenya Land and Freedom Army, as they called themselves, took to the forests around Mount Kenya to fight colonial rule. Muthoni secretly took the Mau Mau oath that year and began using her trading routes to ferry supplies and messages to guerrillas. She didn't tell her husband at first. The oath bound her to secrecy. Soon, Mutungi joined as well. They slaughtered a goat to celebrate, and he disappeared into the forest. Muthoni would not see him for 11 years. The day after he left, soldiers loyal to Chief Muhoya came looking for him. Muthoni lied, saying he had gone to buy eggs. 3 days later they returned and savagely beat her, kicking her until she could barely move. Blood flowed from her nose. She passed out. That beating was her turning point. Passive resistance is not enough, she realized. She resolved to join the fighters in the forest. For over a week, she trekked alone through the hills, searching for Mau Mau camps. When she finally found them, she made a personal vow she would not cut her hair until Kenya was truly free. Those dreadlocks would grow for 70 years. At first, Muthoni was assigned women's work: cooking, gathering roots, nursing the wounded and smuggling ammunition. Food was scarce. They chewed herbs and boiled wild tubers. During a particularly harrowing period, she became pregnant, but the harsh conditions caused a miscarriage. The forest was obviously not the place to bear children, she later said. She could never conceive again, a sacrifice that shaped her later decisions to adopt orphans. But Muthoni refused to stay in the kitchen. She was a natural sharpshooter, soon proving herself more accurate than many male fighters. Her quick thinking under pressure caught the attention of commanders. Within months, she was placed in charge of her own platoon. She walked hundreds of miles to the Ethiopian frontier to collect weapons, navigating by stars and animal trails. Her ability to slip through enemy lines earned her the nickname Nyona wa Thonjo, the weaver bird, because she could weave through branches and bullets without being caught. The danger was constant. She was shot in the hand once and grazed near the eye another time, yet she never considered leaving. A female veteran later recalled, "There was one woman called Muthoni. She feared nothing. She used to go to war with men. She was a dangerous woman. Even men feared her." Being feared and respected in equal measure was part of her survival strategy. Muthoni's leadership shone in both battle and logistics. She was a medic, treating gunshot wounds with herbs and stitching cuts with improvised tools. When food supplies ran low, she would sneak back to the markets, sometimes disguised as a peasant, to secure grain and meat. Her willingness to take risks for her comrades earned her rapid promotions. Eventually she was awarded the rank of Field Marshal, the only woman to reach the Mau Mau's highest military rank. For a movement often portrayed as male, her rise was a profound challenge to gender norms. The guerrillas hunted elephants for food, then buried the tusks to avoid British detection. After the war, Muthoni was one of the few who knew where those tusks were hidden. In 1966, she received a license to trade ivory. For 10 years, she sold tusks legally, an ironic second act for a former rebel. The proceeds funded education for poor children and provided for her adoptive family. It was not greed, it was survival and community care. When Kenya banned ivory in 1976, she complied and shifted to other ventures. Throughout her 11 years in the forest, she was never captured. British aircraft bombed the Aberdare and Mount Kenya forests. Colonial authorities forced over 1 million Kikuyu into fortified villages and built detention camps. Yet Muthoni and her unit moved quietly at night, hiding in caves during the day. She burned propaganda leaflets promising amnesty, knowing they were traps. The weaver bird refused to be lured or broken. By the late 1950s, the rebellion was crumbling. Many fighters surrendered or were captured. Negotiations led to Kenya's independence in 1963, with Jomo Kenyatta as Prime Minister. But the victory was bittersweet. Kenyatta's government criminalized the Mau Mau fighters and discouraged open talk of the rebellion. This is remembered as the betrayal. Imagine risking your life for freedom only to be labeled a criminal by the government you fought to create. Muthoni refused to surrender when independence was announced. She and a small group stayed in the forest, insisting true freedom hadn't yet arrived. Eventually, the newly formed Kenyan army forced their surrender at Ruringu Stadium in Nyeri. 20 fighters handed over guns, knives, and even loincloths. Muthoni walked out of the forest with only her dreadlocks and a strong sense of injustice. "I emerged from the forest after 11 years, but was never given even an inch of land," she lamented. She also refused to cut her hair. To her, the dreadlocks were a covenant with the past. Until she saw tangible benefits for those who fought, the hair stayed. They grew to 6 feet long, becoming an undeniable symbol of both defiance and patience. Post-war, life was brutal. Muthoni and Mutungi returned to a country that considered them radicals. They had no land, money, or support. They begged for food and sometimes slept near public toilets. The strain ruined their marriage, and they eventually divorced. "I emerged from the forest after 11 years, but never got even a needle," she said. In true weaver bird fashion, she found a way. One day she walked into the mayor of Nairobi's office, rolled out her sleeping mat, and lay down without a word. When he asked what she wanted, she told him she would sleep on his floor until he found her a house. Intimidated by this unyielding ex-field marshal, the mayor hurriedly found her a home in Nyeri. She lived there the rest of her life. Because her miscarriage left her unable to have biological children, Muthoni adopted orphans. She poured her energy and money into educating them. In 1990, she served as a county councillor in Nyeri and later started her own security firm. She remained outspoken and witty. When President Daniel Arap Moi awarded her a medal, she wasn't impressed. She noted that it didn't come with the assistance veterans needed. President Uhuru Kenyatta gave her a head of state commendation in 2014. In 2003, Kenya finally decriminalized the Mau Mau and granted veterans free medical care. Muthoni saw this as progress, but she still wore her dreadlocks. She insisted that as long as former fighters were hungry, the struggle remained. After decades of waiting, the moment she had vowed about arrived. On 2nd April 2022, Muthoni decided that Kenya had finally shown meaningful progress. She allowed Mama Ngina Kenyatta, widow of Jomo and mother of Uhuru, to shave off her 6-foot-long dreadlocks. The locks were wrapped in a Kenyan flag and handed to her for safekeeping. Rumors swirled that she had been coerced. She refuted them and explained that she cut her hair willingly because she believed the recognition and compensation of Mau Mau fighters signified Kenya's true freedom. It was the ceremonial end of a personal vow that had lasted 70 years. The irony of a former guerrilla having her dreadlocks cut by the wife of the man whose government once criminalized her is almost cinematic. Yet Muthoni approached it with humor. "It feels much lighter." She told reporters that the next generation should carry the weight of history in their hearts, not on their scalps. Her laughter during the ceremony reminded everyone that she was not just a fighter, but also a storyteller who knew how to heal wounds with jokes. After her hair was cut, Muthoni continued living quietly in Nyeri, receiving visitors who wanted to hear her stories. Less than 2 years later, she passed away at home. Sources differ on the exact date. Some say 4th of September 2022, while others list 4 September 2023. Either way, she was about 92 years old and remained the last surviving female Mau Mau guerrilla. Kenyan leaders paid tribute. King Charles III, visiting Kenya soon after, acknowledged that the Mau Mau rebellion had been a painful struggle. For someone born under colonial rule to hear a British monarch concede, such pain must have felt like history finally catching up. At her funeral in Nyeri, veterans draped her coffin with the Kenyan flag. Her preserved dreadlocks lay beside her, symbolizing the long road to freedom. Mourners shared stories, how she once killed a rhino to save goats, how she outshot men in the forest, how she marched into the mayor's office and lay on his mat until he helped her, how she adopted children and traded ivory to educate them. They laughed through tears, remembering her wit and blunt honesty. Her favorite line echoed, "I went to the forest so that my children and my children's children would be free." Muthoni Kirima's life invites reflection. She defied colonialism, sexism, and poverty. She taught us that leadership is about courage, not gender. She reminded us that revolutions are fought by ordinary people who become extraordinary because the times demand it. She showed that laughter can coexist with resistance and that promises matter, even personal ones, like a vow not to cut hair. Her story also warns us, independence does not guarantee justice. Vigilance and advocacy remain necessary long after the gunfire stops. For young Kenyans, her life is a syllabus on sacrifice and service. For women everywhere, it's proof that ceilings can be shattered, even in the most dangerous arenas. For historians, it's a reminder to look beyond the male names in our textbooks. And for all of us, it's a call to honor the people who quietly fight for justice in our own communities. Teachers, parents, activists, and neighbors, whose names might never appear in a documentary, but whose impact is woven into our freedom. As we close this journey, think of the weaver bird darting through branches. It's small but agile, weaving its nest with care. That's Muthoni's legacy, weaving freedom, justice, and humor together in a life that still inspires. If this story moved you, please subscribe to Wandia Chronicles. We share the unsung stories of Africa, tales that deserve to be heard. Share this video with friends and family. Let's ensure Muthoni Kirima's courage isn't forgotten. And before you go, tell us in the comments, where are you watching from, and what lesson are you taking from her life? We read every comment and love hearing your thoughts. Thank you for spending this time with us. Let's continue to honor those who fought for our freedom by living with purpose, humor, and integrity.